WUSA 9 is counting down to the 2023 election. It is time to make your vote count. Thanks for streaming with us. I'm Larry Miller. Our team has been working to bring you everything you need to know leading up to Tuesday's election. We'll start with my colleague, Simone D'Alba. Simone?
I sat down with a local political analyst and former Virginia delegate for a candid conversation. We take a closer look at what's important to the voters, the impact of the state's general election, and the importance of independent voters. When it comes to Virginia voters, we know that things like the economy, reproductive rights, crime, those are all things that are top of mind for them. But when you think about it, what do you think is going to be a major driver when it comes to voters for this election?
If we're talking today, it's the craziness across the river in Washington, D.C. Everybody's watching what's happening in Congress. If we're talking overall, economy remains to be number one. And of course, with women, it is reproductive rights at this point.
If Republicans can maintain control of the House, but if they flip the Senate, I wanted to talk about some of the larger implications politically for the state of Virginia. How would that all unfold?
The election in general this year is really a determining factor if Virginia is reliably blue or is it back to being a purple swing state. Was the Youngkin election an outlier of one Republican who was able to utilize issues such as parents' rights and school issues and worked for him? Or is this now a change, and is the electorate going to continue to elect Republicans on these issues?
You said it's the independents. This is where the election's going to be won and lost.
The question is going to be, was the Youngkin election 2 years ago a one-time outlier? Can Republicans win individually? He proved that they can. The question now is, can Republicans win as a team? And can he transfer the goodwill, the political credit that he has and that he created in the last 2 years to other political candidates? The jury's still out on that. However, early indications are not looking good for Youngkin and the Republican team.
And while Youngkin's focus may be to get control of the General Assembly, if he's successful, some big-name donors think he could be the next GOP nominee for president in 2024. We told you earlier this month some of the biggest Republican donors in the country met in Virginia Beach for a retreat to try to push Youngkin into the presidential primary race. Gayle King and the team on CBS Mornings pushed Youngkin on that today.
Americans are dissatisfied with their choices for president. We understand donors have approached you to potentially run as a Republican. Can you confirm that?
Well, we have our biggest elections in Virginia in 8 days, and we have been really focused there. I have been in Virginia, not in Iowa, not in New Hampshire, not in South Carolina. I am focused on Virginia.
But the question, Governor, the question was, have donors approached you, and are you thinking about it? That's all. Yes, Gayle, they've approached me. No, they haven't. No, I'm not thinking about it.
Gayle, they've approached me, and I have been focused on Virginia, and everybody knows it because I've said it so frequently for the last year.
National Democrats, they've been fundraising over the 3-week-long chaos of the House Speaker saga, and now they're giving extra money to Virginia Democrats who are running for statewide office. While House Republicans in D.C. battled over deciding on a speaker, National Democrats seized the opportunity and started pumping additional money to Democrats running for state offices in Virginia.
Republican dysfunction in Washington could certainly extend to the Republican dysfunction in Richmond.
Outgoing president of the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, Jessica Post, wants voters to believe that the congressional chaos will meander right down I-95 to Richmond. Unsurprisingly, the chairman of the Virginia GOP says not so much.
So while the Democrats, I think, are trying to leverage this very vigorous discussion that unfolded in Washington, D.C. in recent weeks, I think that it is with negligible effect.
Anderson believes Governor Youngkin's performance in issues like education and the economy will yield Republican success on Election Day.
I think that Governor Youngkin, his leadership, and the direction of the Commonwealth are on the ballot.
Glenn Youngkin's out of step with most Virginians. And so one thing that we know that we'll see is just continued dysfunction, the wrong priorities.
One issue we know is motivating voters on both sides of the political spectrum: abortion.
The first thing that the Republicans will plan to do is pass an abortion ban in Virginia.
Republicans in Virginia want a complete abortion ban, and that's what's going to happen if you elect them. True or false?
That is false. And I will say this, the House and Senate leadership and most of the members of both bodies, Republicans, as well as this pro-life governor, have laid out a standard that they think that people can gather around and reach some sort of consensus.
Anderson says Youngkin is for an abortion ban after 15 weeks that includes exceptions for the life of the mother, rape, and incest.
It could happen, I guess, anywhere.
Also, after the shocking mass shooting in Maine, Post points fingers at the state GOP, saying they won't pursue increased gun control measures.
Virginia is near the top of the nation in the severity of our gun laws.
On CBS Mornings Tuesday, the governor countered that and added he believes there are massive holes in the Commonwealth's mental health systems.
Now let's keep the conversation going about Election Day in Virginia next week. We wanted to bring in a political expert to get an independent take on what you just heard.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen Farnsworth, professor and director of political science at the University of Mary Washington, is with us. Dr. Farnsworth, thanks for coming on. You and your university have just recently completed a pretty sweeping poll of Virginia voters. So what do you say about what are the issues that are motivating them right now?
Well, the story that you just aired is exactly what we're talking about. When you think about the abortion issue, it's clear that this has been a very motivating force, particularly for Democrats in the wake of the reversal of Roe versus Wade. Our statewide survey, showed that Democrats were more energized by the abortion question, and it's more likely to be important to them than Republicans. Of course, when Roe versus Wade was the law of the land, the Republicans were more focused on abortion. The other key issue, of course, is education. If you think about how the governor was elected in part on his narrative about increasing parental authority over schools, there has been, in the wake of some of the policies that the governor's put forward, involving sometimes adjusting the history of Virginia to put it in a more favorable light for public education, and of course the issues with respect to book bannings and other things going on in local school boards, that's created a Democratic backlash. And so that issue is much more of an even issue, where Democratic identifiers and Republican identifiers are both very committed to thinking about education as they go to the ballot box this November.
Republicans have the chance to pick up the Senate in Virginia's legislative elections that would effectively give them a trifecta: control of the governorship in both chambers in the legislature. If that happens, what impact are we talking here long term?
Well, the Republicans have said that they want a 15-week abortion ban. That will be clearly something that would move forward pretty quickly if there's a Republican majority in the House and the Senate. We'll see if that happens, of course. The reality of Virginia politics, for one thing that we know for sure about the outcome of this election, is that each party, the Democrats and the Republicans, will be more cohesive than ever before. There were very few moderates that are going to be in this next legislature. The moderates of both parties have retired or resigned or been defeated in primaries.
We know nationally the trend is when an incumbent president is one party, the opposition party tends to do well in the midterms. Do we have any data about what the trends are in Virginia following a midterm and preceding another presidential election?
Well, one of the things that we know, not unlike the way in which presidential elections lead to a pretty negative environment going into the presidential midterm, the Virginia governors going into a Virginia midterm, it's also the issue of a candidate becoming a governor, having a record, and therefore making enemies and people who are disliking what they see. Now that Glenn Youngkin has been governor for 2 years, people can see and decide whether or not they like what they're seeing with the governor as he's been in office for 2 years. And normally, those 2 years, those midterm elections, not unlike the federal midterm elections, are not particularly favorable for the party in power.
All right, Dr. Stephen Farnsworth, professor and director of political science at the University of Mary Washington. We appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Imagine going to your precinct to vote, signing in, and finding your right to vote has been stripped and no one told you. That happened to thousands of Virginians because of a filing error. And now, with a week to go before the next election, they just got their right to vote restored.
No, I voted. I did. I cast a ballot. They just never counted my ballot.
In 2021, Gayen Balman finally got the right to vote. He was one of the more than 100,000 former felons reinstated on the voting rolls since 2014.
Every single election since my rights were restored, yeah, including the one where I had been stricken from the ballot.
That's right. He showed up to vote in the June primary, and he was told he wasn't on the rolls.
The governor restored my rights. I was good unless I committed a new crime. And here I was trying to exercise my voice as a citizen, and I was being told that I wasn't counted.
And he only had probation violations since his rights had been restored, and it made no sense to me.
Gayen asked Fairfax County Senator Scott Surville to look into what happened, and after weeks of back and forth with Richmond, Surville discovered the problem. When Virginia's voter registration database looked at the state police's felony records, it counted every technical violation, like a probation violation, as a felony, and then purged the voter from the registry. A software issue.
Nobody sort of looked at this very carefully before they instituted this new software program to make automatic decisions for people's constitutional rights.
And it wasn't just Gayen. Around 3,400 other voters also got purged. The Youngkin administration recognized the error with a little over a week to go before the next election. In a news release, they said they had reinstated the wrongfully purged voters, including Gayen Balman, who's ready for next Tuesday.
But I like showing up and exercising my voice. So I'll be there, I'll be voting at my precinct, and I'm looking forward to wearing another one of these stickers.
Now, as a result of this latest incident, the Virginia Democratic Congressional Caucus has again asked the DOJ to investigate the Youngkin administration's handling of the voter rolls in Virginia.
I have a mild disability that makes it difficult to write. If I don't fill in the bubbles on my ballot perfectly, will my vote still count?
To verify, we checked with these sources, including Unison, a company that makes voting machines. Unison makes the scanner machines in Loudoun and Arlington counties and the cities of Fairfax, Manassas, and Manassas Park. The company says if you fill in a paper ballot, its scanner can identify a bubble that's 60% filled in. If the scanner does not recognize a vote, it will tell the voter there's an error and give the ballot back so the voter can fix it. Loudoun County says its ballot scanner can read ovals that are 20% filled in, and if something is wrong, the scanner will give the voter a chance to fix it. Alexandria's Office of Elections and Voter Registration says if you make a mistake on your ballot, you can ask a poll worker for a new one. State law also says voters with disabilities can request help filling out their ballots, either from an elected official or someone of their choosing. And all polling places in Virginia have machines available for voters with disabilities. So we can verify, yes, your ballot will still count even if you don't mark your ballot perfectly, and you can also get help making your selections.
The case of Marcia St. John Cunningham, you might remember she's been running for the Franconia District School Board seat in Fairfax County, but last week she was disqualified from the race for incorrectly stating her address on one of her candidacy forms. Well, earlier today, a circuit court judge ruled St. John Cunningham's rights had been violated when an elections employee discouraged her from submitting more signatures, which means she will likely be back on the ballot. St. John Cunningham spoke with WUSA 9 after today's ruling.
I want the people to know that their vote counts, that their vote matters. I want the people of Franconia and Fairfax to know that one of the reasons I'm running for school board is that a strong public school system is the very fundamental foundation of democracy, and today has proven that democracy has prevailed.
Well, St. John Cunningham tells us this was all because of a small typo where there was supposed to be a 1 when writing her address. She put down a 9 instead. So that little detail caused all of this trouble.
We introduced you to a Spotsylvania man who said he was misled by sample ballots given out by a polling place. Now a judge has weighed in, granting an injunction against the person responsible. Our Evan Kozlov is staying on top of this story for us.
Sample ballots like these are what the debate is all about. Take a look real quick. On one side, with red coloring, you'll see the title Sample Ballot R. On the other side, in blue, it says Sample Ballot D. But here's the thing. This is actually not the list of endorsed candidates from the two parties. And one name you're going to find on both sides is Nick Ignacio.
It's a sample ballot. It's a suggestion.
Today we caught up with Nick Ignacio, an independent candidate for clerk of court in Spotsylvania County. He confirms that he created these sample ballots.
So we have a right to look at those candidates and say we believe that this candidate will serve the people the best.
But the ballots have created confusion for voters like Pablo Cuadrado, who told our Marcella Robertson last week that he felt duped into voting for Ignacio.
Why do you have to cheat to win? It's ugly.
And now a judge has weighed in, granting an injunction against Ignacio, mandating that he more clearly label the ballots as being from a candidate and prohibiting him from producing any election material paid for by his group, the Fredericksburg, Virginia Patriots.
The advertisement, in my opinion, is indefensible.
Republican prosecutor Ryan Mahaffey filed the petition and spoke with us just minutes after the hearing, railing against the ballots as misleading, even though they endorsed him for Commonwealth Attorney.
What I filed the injunction to do is to make Mr. Ignacio comply with the Stand By Your Ad laws and put his name at the bottom so that the voters can determine for themselves what credibility should be given to that advertisement.
Meanwhile, Ignacio is shooting back tonight, arguing that Mahaffey is using his public position as deputy Commonwealth attorney to stifle free speech. But Mahaffey argues that he's just doing this as a concerned citizen and not as a politician.
Any sympathy for somebody that says blue means Democrat, red means Republican, I'm assuming that these are the endorsements from the party. So they vote that way, and then they end up not voting for who the party's actually endorsing. Any sympathy for the person that does that?
Yeah, 100%. If someone feels that they were misled, that's not okay.
Meanwhile, Ignacio is still handing out pamphlets today, but he says he's made some changes which he hopes will put him in compliance. First off, look right here. It now says paid for by friends of Nick Ignacio, which is a new label. Also, he says he's using a bigger font, which he hopes will make it so that people are not confused by these. I reached out to Mahaffey to ask him his thoughts. He says that this might put him in compliance, but he still called it indefensibly deceptive. Reporting here in Spotsylvania, I'm Evan Kozloff, WUSA 9.
The 31st District is Loudoun and parts of Fauquier counties. The candidates are GOP political newcomer Juan Pablo Segura and former Loudoun County prosecutor Russet Perry, a Democrat. Both want your vote on or before Election Day next Tuesday, and both say they're the candidate to keep you and your family safe.
Now, Perry's running for state senate. Not a worry in the world.
Check out this claim in a Juan Pablo Segura ad. Is Russet Perry backed by groups that support defunding the police? We checked with these sources to verify yes. This is a list of several organizations that have endorsed Perry in the race for the 31st that have also gone on the record advocating to defund the police in some capacity. However, her candidate website shows these claims are misleading and don't align with her platform. In part, quote, Russet is a strong believer in fully funding state and local law enforcement agencies. In this Russet Perry ad, she stands by her record.
Nothing matters more than keeping families safe.
Did Perry's time in office correlate with low crime in Loudoun County? We checked with the sources here to verify yes. She worked 2 stints at the Loudoun County Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, most recently from 2017 to 2021, according to her professional bio. We combed through Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments reports to confirm. During that time, Loudoun County consistently recorded the lowest crime rate in Northern Virginia, a number that decreased each year until 2022. However, the headline that pops up in her ad is misleading. It references a Loudoun Now article touting a decrease in crime in the Washington region over the preceding 6 years. Loudoun County did record an increase in 2017, and Perry wasn't working in the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office for 2 of those years. Early voting is underway right now in Virginia. For more information on the candidates and where they stand on the issues, visit WUSA9.com.
2 important advisory questions on Rockville's ballots. The first addresses the future voting age in the city. Rockville voters will weigh in on if residents should allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in city elections. Right now, the voting age is 18. The second question is, should Rockville allow residents who are not U.S. citizens allow them to vote in city elections? Now, keep in mind these are non-binding questions, which means voters can express their opinion, but the final result will not automatically change the law. So the mayor and city council may consider voters' preferences on the ballot if the law changes. While Election Day is November 7th for most cities in Maryland and Virginia, College Park's Election Day is, well, this Sunday. Residents in the city already started voting early. While there are races for mayor and several council seats, only 2 of the races are contested. The next early voting day is this Thursday at City Hall. On Election Day Sunday, voters can cast ballots at the College Park Community Center. Voting hours are from 10 until 6.
Thanks for joining us. Reminder, Election Day is Tuesday in Virginia. If you're not already registered to vote, you can do that on Election Day. We have details on our website. That's WUSA9.com. Polling hours are from 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. In Maryland, the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm Larry Miller. Thanks for streaming with us on WUSA 9 Plus.